Paul, thank you very much for inviting me over. You've spoken in the past about Dead Flowers Reject being the alter ego album of Six, and I'm wondering if I can probe you hard to tell us what you mean by that.
Wow, there's an offer. Dead Flowers Reject was when we did the Six sessions, we recorded about 30 songs, so we had 2 albums worth, and my plan was to make one album and stagger it and put out a second album, in pretty quick time. And the record company just wouldn't go for that. That's pretty normal now. Foals have just done that, their album in 2 parts, you know what I mean? And I wanted that to happen. So essentially I had 2 albums. I had Six and the Dead Flowers Reject, which is a reference to some Brian Jonesy thing that was going on in the studio at the time or whatever. It was a Rolling Stones reference. Because there was which song was it? Golden Stone was knocking around but didn't appear, something about Brian Jones. But yeah, I think ultimately if we had made the 2 albums, I don't think the 2 track listings would have been the same as they were, like if they might be slightly different, but as it was anyway, Dead Flowers Reject was an album I took to Parlophone at the time, and they just said no, because the tracks just appeared sporadically as on EPs and B-sides over the next year and stuff, and the tracks were just wasted, and it was never. But I always told people that I'd made a second album at the time, and I did a little essay about it and put it out, and fans have got the tracks and put them together, and listened to their own version of it, but we've never had it with the proper artwork that was done years ago for it ever been released. And so the fans are going to get a big surprise this record store day when, for the first time in 22 years, they will be able to go and buy the lost Mansun record Dead Flowers Reject on vinyl from their local record store.
When you say that you recorded it at the same time as the Six sessions, was it sort of like We Are Family and Say Chic when you're recording 2 albums at the same time? Did you know which song was for which project?
No, all as I had in my mind is I'm going to do 2 albums, so we're flipping from one track to the other. So we're doing a track that ended up 6. The next day we'd be doing a track that was we didn't know what it was. It was just a pool of songs, and then I was going to get them at the end and see how they all slotted together into 2 albums. And so we didn't know what. Things came. It became clearer as we went on. When I listen back now, and on the 6 box set that we really, the 4-disc earbook that I released, that we released the end of last year, the vinyl going to number 1 on my own side.
Yeah.
And so when we did that, I put a demo on the beat. Me and PDub, my engineer, had been trawling the EMI archives in Hayes, going down and digitising tapes and baking them and stuff. And we found the original demo of When the Wind Blows, which was a song destined for Dead Flowers Reject. And you can go and listen to that now on YouTube if you want, just Mansun When the Wind Blows. And that was a demo, and we never even put it out as a B-side or a demo, and it never even went on the Dead Flowers Reject because we recorded another version of it. But it just makes me sort of like, my heart sink a little bit, and I think, God, we wasted so many tracks. We just never. If someone could have just sat down with us and we were a unit and put the right tracks out to, bring fans into the band, but people have to discover them tracks, you know what I mean? And then that's it now. 22 years later, you can go and discover them tracks now. I mean, it's got some of my favourite songs from the 6 sessions on it. I call it the 6 sessions, but the sessions that we made them to albums, it's got like What It's Like to Be Hated, When the Wind Blows, Been Here Before, some killer tracks on it. Yeah.
So why weren't some of them are considered, What's It Like to Be Hated, When the Wind Blows, I think, But the Trains Run on Time are considered, Mansun classics by fans. So why weren't they? Yeah, but why weren't they? Why wasn't the sort of like the best of the 2 sets of songs amalgamated into one album then? Because 6 is a pretty nuts album, whereas this is there's a lot more. Well, there's a lot more pop on it. It's a lot more linear.
Yeah, well, that was my personal decision to take all the maddest, craziest stuff and put the album out like that, because I just thought we had enough in the tank that we could still make it a hit.
Yeah.
And I remember people at the time saying, no one's going to get this album, Paul, but it'll be massive in the future.
Yeah.
And I go, well, why won't they'll really like it in the future? And I'm like, why don't you like it now?
Yeah.
Because it's just too complex to get your head round in 3 weeks of pre-sales, and then you're not going to get it on the radio. So fortunately for me, word of mouth has gone round, and then it's obviously gone in the top 100 prog albums of all time, and I'm going to tour it next year, and it's one of them classic cult records, really.
Well, let's talk about some of the... I mean, as far as the fans are concerned, like you say, What's It Like to Be Hated? Those are probably the three famous ones, because it came out it was available as a bootleg pretty much in the early days of bootlegging on the internet, wasn't it?
Massive
yeah, because I remember that. One of the first things I ever heard, this MP3 file sharing thing, way back, that it was one of those records. So probably, in any sort of if there was a K-Tel best of Mansun, What's It Like to Be Hated, When the Wind Blows, which could have been recorded by the Carpenters, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah, totally. But The Trains Run on Time, those three would you agree, would they be on a K-Tel 20 Golden Greats?
Well, I think most bands probably would be made up if that was in their top 20 songs, but I don't think, I think fans probably wouldn't even appear in the top 20, I don't think. I'm not blowing my own trumpet. I've just seen all their votes that they do on their Facebook groups and all like that. There's a lot. I've got my own Paul Draper Facebook group, and there's a Mansun Facebook group, and they keep one to the other. So it's. But there's a lot of them out there, man. People just discovered Mansun themselves. I think we were the ultimate outsiders band, as I describe ourselves. I think they're great tracks. I love stuff like The Trains Run on Time and stuff, because
is that political? I mean, it's unusual because it seems to sort of ring true now, really, manipulating people.
Well, it's about the hanging of Mussolini, the dictator, which was going to happen to me in Mansun. You see, I heard whispers that the other three were going to oust me, and. So
that's me thinking it's a commentary on the...
it is political, because obviously all dictators said if you keep the trains running on time, then they'll keep you in power. Me, I was just like trying to keep them all paid and sweet and all like that, so I could stay in power. And then they, unfortunately, after little kicks, they sacked me and got a pub singer in from Chester. Obviously didn't go very far.
That's brilliant.
Essentially, what they did to me was a rock and roll version of hanging me upside down from a lamppost in Rome in my underpants.
So you foresaw your own future.
I'd heard whispered. I'd heard the rumours what they were going to do.
Wow.
They wanted that record deal.
I remember you talking to you about that before, but there it is in that song. The story. It's
a predict. Oh, well, a lot of the stuff from 6 was predictions of what's going to happen in the future. Legacy, Special Blown It.
Oh, okay.
The Trains Run on Time. I knew my time was numbered, so I just thought, fuck you, I'm not making you a pop album. You can go. I'll just make my own record.
Brilliant.
If you're going to go and rob it off me. There was roadies feeding me back information while I was making 6. They were travelling up to Chester to sing with this pub singer.
Oh, right.
And
while you're busy twiddling the
making the album, and they were going to, all on my own, with half of them not even playing on it, and me coming up with a lot of the guitar parts and playing the bass effectively. And but they were rehearsing with this guy, but he couldn't sing, and apparently he had a lot of problems with LSD, and he apparently still lives with his mum now with his LSD problems. And they
sounds like the ideal candidate.
They told him to base his act on John Power out of Cast, so he robbed a lot of Johns. He had his hair permed and dyed ginger, and really? They used to copy his. He used to watch Top of the Pops and copy his moves, his moves. And John was a cool guy and a good songwriter. Still going, proper artist and all like that. But you don't want to copy it that much. And then they got the All Changed Cast album. And they were rearranging all his lyrics and his songs and the chord structures, and so they had a song where he was going. All the roadies were telling me, "You've got to get rid of these fuckers. Because they've got this guy in. He's off his face on LSD, going fly, fly, fly through my mind. I'm gonna fly in the sky in the band." And they're like, the band are going, right, okay, can we do Wide Open Space? And he's going, no, can you? And he couldn't get it, and he kept slamming his acoustic guitar down. Wow. Because they said the singer had to have curly ginger hair, bob up and down, and have an acoustic guitar like the lead singer of the Seahorses.
Right. Okay.
So Chad come up with the amazing idea that he'd walk off stage and he'd say, they said, we'll get rid of Paul somehow, and then as tribute to him, we'll let the audience sing Wide Open Space as a tribute to Paul.
Genius.
Genius, genius.
Fucking hell. Let's talk about When the Wind Blows, because that is one of my favourites. It certainly would be on my KTEL.
Yeah,
it's quite complex, song, chordally, and
yeah, very complex
what's
song.
your memories of writing that?
I think I just did that with Chad. I think, but his guitar part I really didn't like because he was just arpeggiating the chords, and I just thought. And then I made it into a really weird thing by having like loads of delayed DX7 pianos on it, like sounded like off a Wham record or something, just because I was deliberately obtuse with everything and I wanted to use every piece of equipment. So I think the demo is probably better than the finished version we put out. But as I say, the demo's on the 6 earbook, but it's on YouTube, you can listen to it, and I listen now and I just think, why didn't we put Legacy out and then put that out as the second single? Because that smells like a hit to me. But it didn't even put it out in any way, ever.
Well, it's getting its whole second life, though.
Well, yeah, it came out, that demo version. When I say demo, it's not like a crappy demo. I mean, it's a almost finished version, but I just scrapped it and went down a completely odd route with it. But, yeah, I think it's one of the best songs I was ever involved in, and I think it's... yeah, it only came. People only heard it for the first time last year.
Yeah, amazing. Where do you stand on Record Store Day, Record Shop Day, as I'm insisting it be called in this country? Because it strikes me that this is the perfect reason to release something. It's, there it is in record shops. It's physical. It's on white vinyl. It's 180 gram. All the rest of it. It's perfect to get record shops up the agenda and spoken about. And yet, it seems that the majors are using it to, sort of punt. Basically a load of old toot, and it worries me hugely. What's your opinion on Record Shop Day?
I'm big on it. I've only because that everything that I've contributed to Record Store Day, Record Shop Day, so far has been good. We did the Legacy EP, which just sold out straight away, which was a great record, because back in the 90s we'd do 2 CDs. You know what I mean? Yeah. So by the time we put it on one 12-inch vinyl, it had 7 tracks on it. Yeah. And we did Wide Open Space EP. Again, we only did 1,000, and it was in the top 10 on Record Store Day, up there with Bob Dylan and U2 and stuff. Yeah. But we only printed 1,000. We're only doing little runs of it. You know what I mean? And so their price, doubles and triples on eBay and Discogs.
That worries me as well.
Yeah, I don't like that. I really, really don't like that. I don't like that. And I will avoid anyone who tries to get me to sign things so they can pass it on. But I'm no problem with genuine fans at all. I want genuine fans to get hold of this stuff. This year, we're up in the ante a bit, and we're putting an LP out for the first time, and it's an LP that's been 22 years in the making. No one's been able to own it yet. I've been rabbiting on about it for years, and the fans can buy it. But again, it's a limited edition, only 1,500, and you're going to have to queue early if you want this one, kids.
Yeah, because it costs a lot of money to manufacture them, doesn't it, these days? The sort of venture capital that has to go into. You mentioned earlier on about going down to Hayes when all this started, when Kscope got in touch with you and were talking about catalogue. What was that like? I mean, is it like literally a cold storage room with loads of tapes and you've got to find them? And what was that like, you and PDub?
Well, we've been there so many times now. We're just like, it's like our second home. But yeah, it's basically, it's probably guarded heavier than the Anthrax Island, I would have thought. It's like, you've got to find it in the first place, and then when you get there, you're just... massive electric fences all around it. I'm not going to tell you whose tapes are in there, but if you knew...
FNL,
I mean... You see these criminals, and they're stupid, like raiding gold bars and that, because the stuff that's in this place is way more. I've sworn to secrecy, so I cannot tell you what's in there, but some of the stuff I've seen is just, like, we share our row. And Mansun's got a lot of tapes because we did a lot of B-sides and didn't release a lot of stuff, but with one of my great musical heroes, but I just can't. You're just not allowed to say it is. You were guarded all the time by a guard.
All right. Okay.
When you get through the electronic gates in the compounds, you'll drive through to a building where you're, strip searched, and because they have had in the past a journalist try and sneak a record out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I think he went to jail for it because it's like massive fraud.
So what actually? So when you're talking tapes, are you talking 1 inches of the or quarter-inch mixes?
Yeah. You've got a lot. You've got a lot of the quarter-inch tape masters, but the bulk of it is the 2-inch master reels. Yeah. So if you're talking Dark Side of the Moon, the desk it was recorded through went for like 1.5 million last year. Yeah. But what about the actual tape that it's on? Yeah. That is like surely. There's only one Mona Lisa. There's only one set of tapes with Dark Side of the Moon on it. But you're not really going to get them and hang them on a wall because they don't look very good, do they? Yeah. But they're there. Except nobody knows where the Beatle tapes are.
Oh, right, really? They're not there?
No, there's rumours.
Right.
Oh, no, I never said they're not there.
All right. Okay.
I think there's a lot of misdirection.
Oh, right, okay.
And so big artists are not called their real names. They're all labelled under different names. So even if they were stormed by, like, the SAS, you could be nicking, like, Jesus Jones's B-sides collection or something. Not that I've got anything against Jesus Jones.
When you're taking out these tapes to master, what actually were you mastering to turn into what is now the vinyl version of Dead Flowers Reject? Is it a quarter-inch? Is it the 2-inch? How does it work?
Yeah, with these we've taken the quarter-inch mixes out of them and we've digitised them and then remastered them. So how do you do it? So we have no remixes in this.
So how do
we mixed them at the time with Spike, so we had good mixes at the time.
So how do you physically do that? Do you have to hire some sort of fancy facility that's got a quarter-inch and computers and that? Yeah,
there's a few companies around London. EMI. Itself will do it for you in-house.
Oh, right.
And there's a few third-party companies that will do it, but I'm not going to tell you the names because they've got a lot of famous tapes flying in and around all the time for this work that's going on for loads and loads of classic artists. And I think it's fair to say now, Attack of the Grey Lanterns entered the seminal album.
Yeah.
Whereas 6 is just a cult classic. But I'm hoping that the Dead Flowers become the greatest B-sides album of all time. And there is a rumour going around that Mansun is the most successful EP act in the history of the British charts.
Yeah, no, I can buy that. Yeah.
No one else, not even the Beatles, had 14 consecutive EPs charts.
Because it was a big deal in those days. You had to release 2 CDs of everything, because it helped the indie bands chart, the guitar bands chart, didn't it?
Yes, but you had to have 4 individual songs for it to be classed as an EP.
Oh, of course.
So everyone was putting out B-sides that were just acoustic versions and live things, so they weren't classed as EPs. Yeah. So we have got to trawl rock and roll history. So we weren't the greatest albums band, but we were a pretty good one. We definitely weren't the biggest singles band. Elvis would probably, have a few words to say about that. Yeah. But we might be. It could come down to it that we could be. We had the biggest run of successful EPs ever in the history of chart music.
Because when you're talking the 60s, a lot of those EPs were some tracks that had been collected, weren't they? That had already been released and then were re-released as EPs.
Yeah. They'd already been released on singles, and then they wouldn't have because they'd release a couple of EPs, then they'd release a single. Yeah. I'm talking about a run. We had 14 consecutive 4-track EPs. Yeah, wow. So just singles wise, we released 64 songs.
You were working alone a lot of the time. What about these tracks? Can you remember, how much involvement in this particular run of songs, the Dead Flowers Reject run of songs? How much of you is on there, would you say?
Well, I remember the first album was, more or less my thing, but I was trying, my plan, before I'd heard of the dirty rumours that that was a coup d'etat was up and they were about to replace me with another singer, but wait till I've finished all the albums. I tried to get Chad to interact with me on this and bring him in, but he was keeping his distance from me because of events that had happened that he needed to then, get me out of the band. So it wasn't fixable. It was bust from the start. It was all, you've heard the story a million. The more I've gone round the music industry, it's the same old thing.
No, totally.